Borrow Smart, Repay Smart, cash and liability management. We call it the CALM system. For clients, it could be about cash and liability mastery. But I want to take a few moments just to talk a little bit about the software and what we've thought about as we put together a fairly unique package. Our mission for the tool, whether it be a consumer, lender, advisor, institution, is fast, easy, and accurate. Something you can learn quickly, use very easily on a day-to-day basis, and it will provide an accurate apples-to-apples analysis for your client. The end result for consumers, lenders, advisors, and institutions is to deliver clarity and confidence. In other words, looking at what is it that they need to know or understand to feel good about the particular decision that they're trying to make. Now, you need the right tools for any job, and managing liabilities can be tough, especially if you're straddling a spreadsheet, a notepad, a calculator, anything that you might have that you're trying to use to clearly communicate the value of your particular advice for a client who's looking to make a decision. In developing the software, taking that idea of being, again, fast, easy, and accurate, and with a focus of bringing clarity and confidence to the end consumer, we've looked at how would we approach developing something that can be used every day. And we've looked at this from two perspectives. There's really the entry strategy. That's how do I borrow smart now? That could be someone buying a home or refinancing today. And you want to be able to look at that current borrowing and help them determine the best strategy today. But we also want to look in a second at the exit strategy, meaning how will they repay that debt. When we look at borrowing and how do we borrow now, we have to answer several questions. And there really is one question that can be staged differently. The client's always asking, can I afford it now? Do I have the cash right now to do this transaction in a way that I can be comfortable with? It could be down payment, it could be closing costs, but it's really a right now, do I have the cash to do this? Secondly, can I afford it now? And the difference there is simply one of cash flow. If I have the cash to do this right now, the money to buy the house or the money to refinance or whatever, what's it going to do to my cash flow? Can I afford the cash flow impact? Is it going to increase or decrease my cash flow? The third question, can I afford it later, is really what's the net impact to my cash or my wealth over time by making a decision to move forward. So if I refinance, you could look at this like, do I have the cash to refinance now, pay the closing costs? Is it going to have a cash flow impact that I can live with? And is this refinance going to, over time, impact my net wealth in a positive or negative way? This could be true with buying a new residence, a primary residence, a second home, an investment property. Ultimately, we found that when it comes to clarity and confidence, it's these three questions that must be answered for that client to feel good about their decision. Once they know how they're going to borrow smart today, the question becomes, how do I repay smart over time? What's my exit strategy for getting the debt paid off? Is it simply to stay over a 30-year time frame? Do I want to snowball? Do I want to accelerate? Do I want to make extra principal payments? Do I want to put money in a side fund or an investment account that will in the future pay off that debt? With our Repay tab, you have the ability to model almost any possible configuration that you can come up with as to how that client might best repay that debt over time. Ultimately, the software is totally branded for you. When you edit your profile, you'll have that opportunity here to completely select the look and feel, the logos, the report logos, the color schemes, and customize that information so that ultimately when you're meeting with a client or presenting to a client, you have a totally flexible presentation system that will allow you to deliver that presentation to that client in a way that looks like you've really taken a tremendous amount of time and energy to customize and create something just for them. Maybe you had an opportunity to watch the earlier video, the big picture video, and if you didn't, it was an example of a client that I've changed the name, but left most of the debt information the same to show you an example of how the tool can be used. Just as a quick overview, there's a news page here. This is a place where you can get current updates on the software as well as see training videos. There's a calculators tab where you can answer quick questions that a client may have by just going through and filling in a little bit of information. There's a profile tab. This is where you completely customize the software for your individual needs. There's a My Network, which you'll learn about later. It's a premium feature that's available for basically building out a network, or it's really designed for larger companies where they want to collaborate and build a group of users together. Most of what you'd use on a day-to-day basis is right here. On a day-to-day basis, you're going to simply click the Manage Tabs button. You're going to select the type of transaction. Is it a review, a refinance, purchase, second home, rent versus own? And you're going to put in the information for that client. This first tab we call the Eligibility tab. It's where you put in their information about the eligibility of the transaction, their house value, their income, their current liabilities and debts, and any goals that they have right now for this transaction. The second tab is the Suitability tab. On the Suitability tab, I'm able to ask some additional questions. The Eligibility tab is more of that traditional income and it's that kind of qualifying stuff you might think of, whereas the Suitability tab is more of how long do you think you'll be in the house? What are your other goals? Do you have any major purchases that we need to consider right now as part of this transaction? From a risk standpoint, when you borrow, are you aggressive, moderate, or conservative when you think about your borrowing? It's these two tabs together that are just math, but they seem like magic because they come together in a way that allows you to look at on a single page all of these current liabilities, looking at the summary of their debts, the pre-tax and after-tax borrowing rates, the payments that they have, the tax impact, the remaining payments for each debt, and right off the bat, a pretty amazing snowball number that lets you know, hey, this client, just with their current structure, could be debt-free in 60 months if they could just maintain this current payment. Then we have recommended alternative debt structures. You can put up to 3 additional debt structures side by side and completely customize those for comparison with a client. Everything's WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get, meaning I can expand any tab that I want to model for my client to see the impact of their cash. This is that first question. Remember, we said the first question you have to answer is what's the impact on my cash? Okay, if you're going to charge them $4,000, or that's the estimated closing costs, you'll notice they're getting about $4,014 at closing. That's because they're borrowing here a little bit more than they're paying off, so they can afford the cash at closing. What about cash flow at closing? In this case, there was $959 a month in cash flow, positive cash flow coming in at closing. And then ultimately, what's my wealth impact? We can actually go further down and look at the financial impact to see that this client has a $30,500 net impact to their wealth in this transaction. And all of the assumptions are simple, slider based. If I could earn 6% over time on my money, that savings could compound, increasing my wealth to over $50,000. If my appreciation rate is going to be more like 3%, I'm going to increase my, not necessarily my net wealth impact, because in both cases the property is worth more, but the net differential between here and here is that $50,000. All these variables, my target time frame, my time frame is 15 years. I can see the financial impact over 15 years, staying with what I have versus looking at something new. Again, we think of this as your entry strategy, where you analyze how you're going to borrow smart, and then this tab is your repayment strategy. It's your exit strategy, where you can model any number of different scenarios for this client, from a normal repayment strategy to additional cash flow, and I can see dynamically when these debts are being paid off, any additional spending, my overall costs, and how quickly I could be debt-free, in this case 20 years and 1 month. But as I mentioned, using a snowball type strategy, we were able to show this client how they could be completely debt-free in less than 5 years. And we can even model for that client the potential savings of paying off early and investing that money over the life of their remaining mortgage term. We can look at the additional wealth over time. We can compare strategies side by side and compare a different strategy where instead of that money maybe going to, say, invest or prepay the mortgage, maybe instead we invest in a side fund, and we can actually see that debt being paid off in as little as 4 years. We then go to our report and we decide here, do we want a cash flow plan, a moderate type repayment plan, or a comprehensive wealth plan? And simply from there, click the Create Report button to generate the dynamic report that you saw earlier. That report comes in a variety of formats depending on what you select, but it'll have a customized cover page, an introduction, and all of your notes from the plan show up right here, as well as the current debt structure, the alternatives that are being proposed, and again you can have up to 4 side by side, the proposed debt structure, even our patented matrix of the product that was recommended and why. You also have the opportunity to see the cash flow impact, the various repayment strategies, and going deeper and deeper into the numbers, using a particular strategy that allows the client to go as deep as they want into how all of these different numbers are being calculated. But if I'm an analytical client and I really want to drill down, I can come in here and see my proposed liabilities. I can see the money that I'm spending, what's available, how much is being saved or how much is being prepaid. I can go right down and see line for line my debt balance and the year that my mortgage would be paid off in full based on each individual strategy. So the last little thing that you have as a feature is even the ability to transfer to people in your network. So if you're working with different people within your network that show up here, you can click on them and transfer a plan directly to them and collaborate on plans. This works especially well for financial advisors and lenders or groups that work on a call center basis or mortgage companies where there's someone with a certain level of expertise that may be supporting others. Again, a number of different ways that feature can be used. So hopefully this is helpful. I wanted to give you a quick overview of some of the thought that went into the software, this being, of course, just a quick overview on the software itself. Next steps are pretty easy. If that seemed interesting, you'd like to give it a shot, download a 21-day free trial. You'll get a full working version of the software that you'll be able to keep and use. At the end of 21 days, if you don't want to upgrade, you'll get to keep a light version of the software. And if you do, you can simply pay $15 a month to get the full features, benefits of the program, and all of our ongoing updates and support. We'll start you on a 21-day training video drip after you install the software. That will give you step-by-step instructions as well as some case studies to practice so you can really start to learn some of the full power and features of the Bar Smart Analysis software. We really appreciate your interest and hope that you find this as exciting a part of your business as we do.